Hello, welcome to my channel Sui Solutions for You. I am Sushmita Kiran. Today I am back with a study video. We will be taking up some topics from the module Thermodynamics and I will be explaining how to learn it very easily. So let's start our video quickly. First topic is Nernst heat theorem. So what is Nernst heat theorem? Nernst heat theorem says that delta G and delta H, what is delta G? Delta G is change in free energy and delta H is change in enthalpy. So delta G and delta H tends to approach each other asymptotically, that is gradually when we lower the temperature. Okay. So when we lower the temperature, when temperature is lowered, at that time delta G and delta H will approach each other, or at absolute zero temperature. Absolute zero temperature is 0 Kelvin. At 0 Kelvin, delta G will be equal to delta H. Okay. So this is our Nernst heat theorem. So Nernst heat theorem states delta G and delta H will approach each other when we lower the temperature. That is, at absolute zero temperature, delta G will be equal to delta H. How we can represent it graphically? So graphical representation. Graphical representation will be like this. This is temperature, this is delta H curve, this is delta G curve. I can represent it here, this area as delta G, this as delta H, and this is 0 Kelvin. Okay. So we can represent graphically as we lower the temperature, if we move to this side, as we lower the temperature, what will happen? Delta H and delta G will approach each other, and at 0 Kelvin, delta G will be equal to delta H. Okay, this is Nernst heat theorem. How we are getting this? We know Gibbs free energy equation. Gibbs free energy equation is delta G is equal to delta H minus T delta S. This is our free energy equation. Now, in this, at absolute zero, T will be 0. So this term will get cancelled out and we will have delta G is equal to delta H. So this is Nernst heat theorem. Now, so I can represent this equation as limit T tends to 0, dou delta G by dou T at constant P is equal to limit T tends to 0, dou delta H by dou T at constant P is equal to 0. Okay. So mathematically we can represent Nernst equation as limit T tends to 0, dou delta G by dou T at constant P is equal to limit T tends to 0, dou delta H by dou T at constant P will be equal to 0. That is, both of them are equal. Now, what is dou delta G by dou T at constant P? So, in my last video, I have already explained the dependence of free energy with temperature and pressure. From that, we know dou delta G by dou T at constant pressure is equal to entropy delta S. Okay. So this term is equal to delta S, that is the dependence of free energy with temperature and pressure. In that we have already derived dou delta G by dou T at constant P is equal to delta S. So I can rewrite this equation as limit T tends to 0, delta S is equal to 0, because this term is equal to 0 and this term is equal to 0. So I can write it individually also. So this is done. Now, what is dou delta H by dou T? Dou delta H by dou T is Cp. Okay. So dou delta H by dou T at constant pressure is Cp. So that is limit T tends to 0, Cp is equal to 0. Fine. So finally we have arrived at the conclusion that limit T tends to 0, delta S will be 0, and limit T tends to 0, Cp is equal to 0. If you don't know how we got this delta S and Cp, please do watch my previous video where I have explained it clearly. I will be giving the link in the description. Okay. So now tell me, delta S is equal to 0. Have you heard this term anywhere? This is the basic of our third law of thermodynamics. So what is third law of thermodynamics? Third law of thermodynamics states that the entropy for a perfectly crystalline solid is 0 when at absolute zero temperature. Okay, at absolute zero temperature, the entropy for a perfectly crystalline solid is 0. So they have derived third law of thermodynamics from this equation. So this is Nernst heat theorem. Next topic is chemical potential mu I. Many students have confusion in this term chemical potential in the perspective of thermodynamics. So let's see the definition and mathematical equation for chemical potential. So what is chemical potential? Chemical potential is nothing, it is the free energy change. It is the free energy change when 1 mole of a component, is added to a system of large quantity, such that there is no change in its initial composition. Okay. So it is a free energy change when 1 mole of a component or 1 mole of a substance is added to a system of large quantity or large composition and there is no change in its initial composition. Okay. At that time the free energy change is called chemical potential. Chemical potential we are representing using the letter mu I, Greek letter mu I. So now suppose we have two systems, okay, one system have high potential and another system have low potential and they are kept close to each other. Always potential flow will take place from high concentration to low concentration and this flow will continue until an equilibrium is reached, okay, So at equilibrium we know free energy change will be 0, okay. So always this flow will take place until an equilibrium is reached. Now, how we can represent chemical potential? So, chemical potential mu I is equal to dou G by dou Ni at constant temperature, constant pressure and Tpn, that is fine. So, mu I is the chemical potential that is equal to dou G by dou Ni at constant Tp and N. So, always this will take place at constant temperature and pressure. So when we are adding 1 mole of a substance to a system of large quantity and there is no change in composition, the condition should be at constant temperature and pressure. So mu I is equal to dou G by dou Ni at constant Tp and N, where G is the free energy change and N is the number of moles. Okay. And this N is the total composition or total number of moles of the system. That should be constant, that should not change. That is equal to dou H by dou Ni at constant Tpn. What is dou H? This is enthalpy and this is same number of moles added. That is again equal to dou U by dou Ni at constant Tpn. Okay. So, mu I is represented using the equation dou G by dou Ni at constant temperature, pressure and total number of moles of the system, and dou H by dou Ni at constant Tpn and dou U by dou Ni at constant Tpn, because G, H and U, all these represent the free energy change of a system. So, we can represent mu I in terms of dou G, in terms of H and in terms of U. So, this is chemical potential. Or directly we can say that chemical potential of a system is always directly proportional to its concentration. Okay, always by heart this, chemical potential is free energy change. Chemical potential will be always directly proportional to the concentration. Our next topic is fugacity. What is fugacity? There are two types of gases. One is ideal gas and the other one is real gas. One is real gas and other one is ideal gas. So if we represent the pressure of ideal gas as P, then we will represent the pressure of real gas as fugacity F. Okay. So what is fugacity? Fugacity is the pressure of real gas. Fugacity is the pressure of real gas. Okay. So that is fugacity F. Now how we will represent it? We will represent it using the equation G is equal to G0 plus nRT ln F. Okay. So G is equal to G0 plus nRT ln F. Using this equation we can calculate fugacity F. So in case of ideal gas, instead of this F you will have P. That is only the difference. So fugacity means pressure. So that term we are using for real gas. Mathematically, limit P tends to 0, F by P is equal to 1. So F is fugacity and P is the pressure of ideal gas. When P tends to 0, our real gas will behave like an ideal gas. Okay. Now the fugacity, the pressure of real gas will be always higher or lower than the actual pressure of ideal gas. Okay. So it is rarely it will be equal. Either it will be higher than the actual pressure or it will be always less than the actual pressure of ideal gas. At low pressures, fugacity will be positive and at high pressures, fugacity will be negative. Okay. So that is all about fugacity. So what is fugacity? Fugacity means it is the pressure of a real gas. Okay. For a real gas, we are representing the pressure with the term fugacity F. So how to find out fugacity? It is calculated using the equation G is equal to G0 plus nRT ln F. Okay. All the terms are familiar, no need to explain again. Now from this equation we can calculate fugacity F. Or one more mathematical equation is available for fugacity, that is limit P tends to 0, F by P is equal to 1. F is the pressure of real gas, P is the pressure of ideal gas. So at lower pressures fugacity will be positive and at higher pressures fugacity will be negative. At moderate pressures we are using the equation F is equal to P square V by RT. Okay. So for calculating fugacity at moderate pressures we have an equation F is equal to P square V by RT. So that's all about fugacity. Next topic is thermodynamics of biochemical reaction. So what is the thermodynamics inside our body? That what is happening inside our body? Okay. So we have learned for reactions delta G is negative. Suppose for reactions if delta G is negative, those reactions are said to be spontaneous. Okay, we already know that. That is they will occur naturally. Suppose if a reaction have positive delta G value, then we will tell that that reaction is non-spontaneous or that reaction won't occur naturally. So, but inside our body, many reactions will have delta G positive value and many reactions will have delta G negative value. Still they occur inside our body. How? How it is possible? What is the reason behind that is the reactions with positive delta G value will couple with the reactions having negative delta G value and the final delta G value will be negative. Suppose one reaction will have positive delta G value and another reaction will have negative delta G value. They will couple together and finally we will have one reaction in that delta G value will be negative. So that will occur naturally and that will be spontaneous. So inside our body this coupling is very common. Let us check out two reactions that take place inside our body. Glucose plus fructose gives sucrose. We know that for that delta G is plus 5.5. Now ATP, adenosine triphosphate, will decompose to give ADP and phosphate, and for that delta G is minus 7.3. So what we will do? We will couple these two reactions. So when we are coupling these two reactions with one having positive delta G value and another one having negative delta G value. So you will have glucose plus fructose plus ATP gives ADP plus sucrose plus phosphate. Okay, so when we are coupling these two reactions, we are adding both the reactions. Now, in case of delta G, first was plus 5.5 kilocalories per mole, and for the second reaction it is minus 7.3 kilocalories per mole. So when you are adding these two values, what you will get? We will get minus of 1.8 kilocalories per mole. So delta G is equal to minus of 1.8 kilocalories per mole. Since our delta G value is negative, this reaction is feasible, or we can say that is spontaneous. So inside our body, many reactions that is non-spontaneous is also occurring, but they will undergo coupling reaction in order to get a spontaneous process. Let us see the importance of ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate, that is providing energy for our cells to do work. Okay, suppose we have to do muscle contraction or any work, ATP is giving the energy for doing that work. So, how this ATP is synthesized? In case of plants, this ATP is synthesized through photosynthesis, and in case of animals, this ATP is synthesized through the breakdown of carbohydrates and lipids. Okay. So, whatever food we consume, that will undergo aerobic oxidation to release energy, and this energy will be stored in the form of ATP, that is used for doing various work. Let us consider the oxidation of glucose. So, glucose will undergo aerobic oxidation to give carbon dioxide and water. For that, our delta G will be 2880 kilojoules per mole. Now, for 1 mole of glucose, from 1 mole of glucose, we will get 38 moles of ATP. Okay, so from 1 mole of glucose, you will get 38 moles of ATP. Now, ATP will undergo hydrolysis to form ADP, adenosine diphosphate. So, adenosine triphosphate will undergo hydrolysis to form adenosine diphosphate, and in that reaction you will get delta G value as 30.5 kilojoules per mole. Neglect the negative sign, only consider the value. Now, for 1 mole of glucose you will get 38 moles of ATP, and from 1 mole of ATP you will get 30.5 kilojoules per mole of energy. So, 38 moles will give, from 1 mole you got 30.5. So, from 38 moles of ATP, we will get 38 into 30.5 kilojoules of energy, and that is 1160 kilojoules. So, 1160 kilojoules of energy will be obtained from 38 moles of ATP that you will obtain from breaking down of glucose. Okay. Now, the total energy obtained after breaking down of glucose was 2880. So, out of this 2880, 1160 kilojoules will be preserved for doing work. That won't use up. This 1160 kilojoules will be preserved, that will be kept by our body as a reservoir, and the remaining energy, that is 1720 kilojoules. This energy will be used up for doing work. How do you got this 1720? We know 1720 plus 1160 will be 2880. That will be obtained after breaking down of glucose. So, when we are taking up food, that food will undergo aerobic oxidation and our body will produce 2880 kilojoules of energy. In that, 1160 kilojoules will be kept as a storage of energy, and only 1720 kilojoules will be used up by our body for doing the work. So, this is the biochemical reactions that takes place inside our body, and the thermodynamics behind those biochemical reactions. Hope you liked my video. Please feel free to comment in my inbox if you have any queries. Thank you for watching my video, and if you liked my video, please like, share and subscribe my channel. I'll come up with a new video next time. Until then, bye-bye.